And good morning once again, my brothers and sisters. Today we find ourselves in 2 Samuel chapter 2. And today's a great lesson for us. Have you ever understood that God wanted something? For instance, in our passage today, we know that God wants David to be king. Samuel has anointed him. Despite all the attempts by Saul to kill him, nothing has worked. In fact, now Saul is dead. But David's not just going to be handed the throne, even though this is God's will for him. And sometimes it looks like you and I, David is a good example, we have to struggle. God puts us in situations where we have to learn how to trust him, where we learn how to wait, and we let him do what he wants to do in his time. And that last little phrase hurts a lot of us, in his time. We don't like to wait. We want what we think we want, or what we want the way our problems should be solved. We want it to be done now. And God says, no, let me show you something. You're going to wait. You're going to struggle. You're going to have a moment or 2 or 5 or 10 where you're uncertain that I'm even still in the picture. And then I'm going to move to make sure you understand that the only reason, whatever it was that you were chasing, the only reason it happened was by the power of God. We'll see it today in David. In the course of time, so time is passing, Saul is dead, David's still in Ziklag. What does David do? Well, this is a characteristic of David's whole life. What does he do? He inquires of the Lord. Lord, you need to help me understand. Here's what I want to do. Shall I go up to one of the towns of Judah? And the Lord said, go up. David asked, where shall I go? To Hebron, was the answer the Lord gave him. So David went up there with his 2 wives, Ahinoam of Jezreel and Abigail, the widow of Nabal of Carmel. So now we see David moving from Ziklag to Hebron. Okay, well, David also took the men who were with him. So there's 600 guys that have families, each with his family. They settled in Hebron and its towns. So this had to take more than a couple days, right? Weeks, months. In the end, David has relocated his whole army, their families, and he himself with his 2 wives to Hebron. The men of Judah came to Hebron. Look at this. And there they anointed David king over the house of Judah. So the guys that live in Judah understand that David's going to be the king. He's the one that's slain his 10,000s, while Saul only slew his 1,000s, right? So they say, David, be our king. They anoint him king. He is given that political position of king. Judah, if you recall, is in southern Israel, the south part of the occupied territory that the Israelites have, the promised land. So, okay, when David was told that it was the men of Jabesh Gilead who had buried Saul, this would be people to the north. He sent messengers to the men of Jabesh Gilead to say to them, the Lord bless you for showing this kindness to Saul, your master, by burying him. In other words, I appreciate the fact that you respected him enough as the Lord's anointed to treat him kindly, even in his death. May the Lord now show you kindness and faithfulness, and I too will show you the same favor because you've done this. I am going to do everything I can to bless you. Now then, be strong and brave, for Saul your master is dead, and the house of Judah has anointed me king over them. Okay, so what are we being told here? Well, David's telling the north that the south has already decided to make him king. Meanwhile, Abner, son of Ner, the commander of Saul's army. Opposition. Abner. He had taken Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, and brought him over to Mahanaim. Okay, so now Ishbosheth would be potentially in the line of the monarchy by the fact that he is Saul's son. So he should be next in line to inherit the throne since Jonathan and his other brother have died. Well, Abner sees that. Abner, I'm sure, is thinking for himself as well that he would be in a very powerful position as the head guard or military man under the command of Ishbosheth. So he made him king over Gilead, Ashuri, and Jezreel, and also over Ephraim, Benjamin, and all Israel. This would be the northern part of the country. Ishbosheth, son of Saul, was 40 years old when he became king over Israel, and he reigned for 2 years. The house of Judah, however, followed David. So look at that. God doesn't say to David, hey, your rival Saul, the one I rejected, is now out of the picture, so here's the crown. You now rule Israel. No. Here we have a 2-year interlude where Abner has brought Ishbosheth to the kingship of the north. Judah has brought David to the kingship of the south. And David, apparently he's living these 2 years day by day. I'm sure he has to be wondering, when will God's promise to him be fulfilled? He's waiting to become what God anointed him to be. Well, the length of time David was king in Hebron over the house of Judah was 7 years and 6 months. So we know that 2 years Ishbosheth was king. We know that David was king 7.5 years. Okay, how does David gain the kingship of the whole nation? Excuse me. Well, let's see if we can find out. Wow, excuse me. Abner, son of Ner, together with men of Ishbosheth, son of Saul, left Mahanaim and went to Gibeon. All right. What's happening here? We're going to consolidate our power. Joab, son of Zeruiah, and David's men went out and met them at the pool of Gibeon. So here you have these warriors from the north and the south meeting at the pool of Gibeon. One group sat down on one side of the pool and one group on the other side. Abner said to Joab, now these are the two military leaders, one for Ishbosheth, Abner, one for David, Joab. Let's have some of the young men get up and fight hand to hand in front of us. All right, let them do it, Joab said. So now we have agreement. Look what happens. So they stood up and were counted off, 12 men for Benjamin and Ishbosheth, son of Saul, and 12 for David. Then each man grabbed his opponent by the head and thrust his dagger into his opponent's side, and they fell down together. So that place in Gibeon was called Helkath Hazurim, which means the double-edged sword. In the end, what happens here? 12 guys from each side, they all go to fighting with their knives, their daggers, and they all kill each other. So we had 24 dead bodies as a result of this face-off that the leaders of the militaries of the north and the south decided to conduct. The battle that day was very fierce, and Abner and the men of Israel were defeated by David's men. Now, we just sort of fast forward to the fact that this meant war broke out in the sense that now David's guys are fighting Ishbosheth's guys. Abner, the men of Israel, were defeated by David's men. Okay, we're really not told too much about that. The 3 sons of Zeruiah were there, Joab, Abishai, and Asahel. Okay, so 3 sons of Zeruiah. Now, Asahel was as fleet-footed as a wild gazelle. So we're told about this third brother, this third son of Zeruiah, and we're just told that he's really fast. He's a runner. He chased Abner. So somewhere in his heart, he decided to go after the military leadership of the northern kingdom of Israel. He chased Abner, turning neither to the right nor to the left as he pursued him. And Abner looked behind him and asked, "Is that you, Asahel?" "It is," he answered. Then Abner said to him, "Turn aside to the right or to the left. Take on one of the young men and strip him of his weapons." But Asahel would not stop chasing him. For some reason, Asahel has this laser focus on going after Abner, who's the military leader of the north. Again, Abner warned Asahel, "Stop chasing me. Why should I strike you down? How could I look your brother Joab in the face?" You know, Abner's a warrior. Abner's been to battle before. Abner knows how to kill. And here we have this fleet-footed guy, Asahel, chasing him around. And Asahel will not listen to that cease and desist order that Abner has issued. So what happens? But Asahel refused to give up the pursuit. So Abner thrust the butt of his spear into Asahel's stomach, and the spear came out through his back. Abner's a powerful guy. Asahel isn't going to live. He fell there and died on the spot. And every man stopped when he came to the place where Asahel had fallen and died. All right, what happens now? But Joab and Abishai, those are the brothers of Asahel, pursued Abner. So now, instead of being free of the chase, Abner is now being chased by two instead of one. And as the sun was setting, they came to the hill of Ammah near Gihah on the way to the wasteland of Gibeon. Then the men of Benjamin rallied behind Abner. They formed themselves into a group and took their stand on top of a hill. Here we go. We're going to have a fight. Again, we've been having nothing but international, I guess I should say, within the people of Israel. All they've been doing is fighting each other, tribe against tribe, north against south. Here we go again. They're about to fight again. Abner called out to Joab, "Must the sword devour forever? Don't you realize that this will end in bitterness? How long before you order your men to stop pursuing their brothers?" And Joab answers, "As surely as God lives, if you had not spoken, the men would have continued the pursuit of their brothers until morning." In other words, our intention was to come and kill you for sure. So Joab blew the trumpet, and all the men came to a halt, and they no longer pursued Israel, nor did they fight anymore. So, through Abner's admonition, Joab calls off his guys, and there seems to be a relative peace, at least a truce, for the time being. All that night, Abner and his men marched through the Arabah. They crossed the Jordan, continued through the whole Bithron, and came to Mahanaim. All right, then Joab returned from pursuing Abner and assembled all his men. Besides Asahel, 19 of David's men were found missing, but David's men had killed 360 Benjamites who were with Abner. Listen to that. David's lost 19 guys. Abner's lost 360 guys. Again, the Benjamites, who are they? That's the tribe Saul was from. All right? They're also great warriors, we're told. But we're told here that 360 of them are now dead as David and his men pursued them. They took Asahel and buried him in his father's tomb at Bethlehem. Then Joab and his men marched all night and arrived at Hebron by daybreak. What's happening now? Well, again, it's a transitional moment in the history of Israel. We're going to see David eventually rise to the throne, but it's not going to be without bloodshed. It's not going to be without great struggle. It's going to be hard to unify the nation. Well, in the end, the lesson for us, God's in control. He's able to get his will accomplished. David will eventually take the throne, as God has decreed. But another lesson for us is sometimes getting where God wants you to be can be quite a struggle, with a lot of bumps in the road, with a lot of turns, with a lot of injury and hardship. We should know that, right? Jesus is right where God wants him to be, doing exactly what God wants him to do, and he's getting crucified as he obeys his Father. Well, we can understand then that for us to obey the Lord might mean that we have to face obstacles that are bigger than we are, and we have to just simply trust that God will get us through if we hold on. So I pray you persevere today, church, and I pray you serve him well. God bless you.
Who is it who for sinners shed his blood, and now for cleansing all can plunge beneath that flood? It's Jesus. But do you know who he is? He's the image of the invisible God. future, the past, He is God.